Good morning. No brain toys to play with, sorry. Um, but I want to talk to you today. I said we were going to leave my story behind for a while and get into other things. Today I thought, let's talk about stigma, let's talk about discrimination. It's really important to know that one, a lot of people with mental illness feel that they deal with it on some level or another, particularly those with serious mental illness. And the two most serious ones that we deal with out there are schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. And myself having bipolar disorder, it's one of them. For a long time, I had to deal with the self stigma, the stigma that I created for myself, feeling that everyone could kind of look at me and know, even though it's ridiculous. You can't look at a person and know that they have this illness you can't see. It's like staring at someone and being like, hey, you, I know you have high blood pressure. I know you have diverticulitis. You don't know. But that's kind of how I felt. I felt marked. But I did that to myself. When I'm in recovery and I'm stable, you can't tell. But like I said, it's what you do yourself and it's how you feel. And it takes a while to move past it. I firmly believe it's a phase. If you think back to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and the 5 stages of grief, there's anger, there's denial, there's acceptance, and I mean a really bad nurse because I can't remember all the 5 stages, but bargaining, but I'm at the point where I'm through all of them and I'm just in acceptance, and that's where I live. I accept every day that I have a disorder that I have to take medications for every day for the rest of my life, and that's just how it's going to be, because that's what makes me a better person. It makes me a better mother, it makes me a better wife, and it makes me a better nurse practitioner. And that's my hope for other providers out there, because like I said, I am not the only medical provider with a mental illness, and this is all about the rest of you and helping you know that you are not alone and that you can find your way and you can be a perfectly safe, sound provider in remission with an intact, flourishing, terrific career. And even if you're not a medical provider, say you work in fashion, this applies to you too. You can do it. You can make it. You can be anything you want to be. It's all about acceptance and taking your medication and knowing what you have to do, which is to do anything your providers tell you to do to be better. And I couldn't accept that for a long time, and here I finally am. But, so here I am. I used to write a blog and now I've converted it into this video blog. And, I don't know how far I reach out into cyberspace. I know I'm up to 15 subscribers. Yay, thank you. Keep those likes and those subscribers coming. I used to have this feed bot on Twitter that would, share my blog. And a lot of my personal friends, encourage me and keep sharing things, and I'm beyond grateful for that, because without this network, really, I'd be nowhere. But I still have to tackle the perspective of being sick. And at one point, the general public, sometimes I get messages from them, which I welcome. I welcome feedback. I welcome hearing from you guys. I love it. It keeps me going. But sometimes you get examples of what not to say to someone with mental illness. A few years ago, I got an example of stigma at its very worst, and I want to read it to you. Your story sounds just like mine, and like so many of us. I want to be honest with you. I highly doubt that you were really bipolar. It is the changing up and down of drugs that had your brain in chaos. Even if you exhibited the symptoms before any drugs, my bet is that it would be milder and probably had been left untreated. Wait a minute. They would be milder and probably would have been if left untreated. Your hospital experience is what many of us have lived too. It is a shame that they call psychiatry part of medicine because it is honestly so degrading and damaging. I humbly suggest that if you so desire, join one of the Facebook groups we have for psych drug survivors. Survivors. So if you can see for yourself how common your story is and how the drugs make us a lot worse. After years of careful, very slow tapers off the drugs, many of us have lost all our bipolar symptoms. It is not my job to convince anyone, but just to plant the seed and let the person trust their own intuition. Do you know how floored I was when I got this message? I was like, are you kidding me? I've had 3 different doctors tell me I'm bipolar. 3. I'm healthy today because of those doctors. I'm healthy today because they didn't quit and they kept trying to find the right cocktail of medication. I'm healthy today because none of my providers ever once lost hope. Even when I lost hope, they didn't lose hope. And I take that approach with my patients today. They can lose hope, but I will be, goddamned if I'm going to be the one to lose hope on them. That is not my job to lose hope. My job is to keep hope when everyone else in the room has lost hope. Who? This person, how dare they? How dare they write this to me? They're smarter than my doctors. They know better. They know that if I just stop my meds, I would be right again. Guess what, sister? I've done that many times. It always ends badly, very badly. Psychiatry is a very essential part of medicine, just like any other branch. It's just as essential as endocrine. It's just as essential as GI. It's just as essential as dermatology. It's just as essential as cardiology. Every field contributes to our understanding and healing the body as a whole. And anyone who believes otherwise or tells you otherwise, they're entitled to their opinion, yes. But in my mind, they're also chopping off their nose to spite their face. It would be similar to, say, after my condition declined, I'm not going to work with psychiatrists anymore. You know, just like when I had to be placed in Silver Hill after my SSRI failed and I got suicidal and the lack of psychiatry followed up. But if you remember, diligence, persistence, and ECT saved my life and brought me back to my family, memory loss and all. And I'd do it again. And I get told almost every day by patients how grateful they are for what I've done. So screw you, you stigma-hating anti-psychiatry people. I'm sorry you had a bad experience. I'm sorry you felt let down by somebody. You needed someone to not lose hope for you, and you needed someone better. You had the right to better care, and you needed to find that person. And I wish you had found that person. I feel horrible when I hear that other people don't have the experience as the right person. It shouldn't be that way. But to tear someone else down and tell them that their experience is basically irrelevant and they were never sick, it's the worst kind of stigma that exists today. And it's the reason why I do this. It fuels me. It keeps me going. Despite as far as I've come, I think there's a lot of time I still have two scarlet letters. One is B for bipolar and one is S for stigma. And sometimes, when I'm with a bunch of new people who don't know me, I'll admit it, I fear that everyone sees it peering out. A big B and a big S. But, it's stupid. This is a neurochemical disease. You can see it on scans, and I have no control over it. Just like you, if you're watching and you have the same disorder or you have a different disorder, you have no control over it. Just like a diabetic, like juvenile diabetes type 1, or type 1 diabetes, because it's an autoimmune disease. You have no control over it. Lupus, it's an autoimmune disease. You have no control over it. I have no control over this. So I have to view it the same way a diabetic, a hypertensive, an asthmatic patient views their disease. And I need to keep working at this until the rest of the world views it the exact same way. That my disorder, it's about managing moods. Just like a diabetic manages blood sugar. And it's that simple. A schizophrenic, it's about managing a neurodegenerative thought disorder. It's that simple. They have a harder time than me. Their disease is far worse than me. But it's about managing a neurodegenerative thought disorder, and there's medications that can help them do that. It's that simple. It is a brain disease they have no control over. If you see them homeless and living on the streets, I assure you, they didn't pick that life. No one picks that life. It's because their brain's not allowing them to see that they're sick. Just like an Alzheimer's patient, their brain sometimes does not allow them to see that they're sick. Does not allow them to see that they have dementia. But somehow that's okay, but it's not okay for the schizophrenic patient. I just don't get it sometimes. This whole mental illness thing, so many people, their biggest complaint is that it's a really lonely place, but it doesn't have to be. It can be, a place of kindness, compassion, and understanding. It doesn't have to be rife with stigma and judgment. We, our families, the public, can educate ourselves on symptoms and what recovery should look like. Same way, we all know the basics of the Heimlich maneuver, and we have defibrillators all over towns, and how to help people when they're fallen down in cardiac arrest. 1 in 4 American adults deal with some sort of mental diagnosable issue every year. 1 in 4. That's a staggering number. It amounts to 3 times the amount of diabetics in this country and 10 times the amount of cancer patients. Think about that. But where do our resources go to? They go to the diabetics. They go to the cancer patients. Yet, green dress pins aren't handed out in every street corner the way red dress pins are handed out in February, and little green ribbons aren't found on every lapel in October the way pink lapel pins are. We need to work on this. We need to work on the stigma issue. I'm not gonna quit until people feel comfortable and people understand. Stigma is discrimination. It's discrimination against a brain disorder. And it's not right. brain is just as important as any other organ out there. And to say words like I just read to you that were said to me in an email, it's not okay. Would you write that to a cancer patient? Would you write that to a diabetic? Would you write that to someone recovering from a cardiac arrest? No. So why would you write that to someone with mental illness? You wouldn't. Plain and simple. So let's keep the talk going. Thank you for tuning in, and as always, this is Bipolar and Me. I'm Anne. Please like the video, feel free to share, and most importantly, please subscribe to the Bipolar and Me channel for more interesting content. Thank you.